This program is brought to you by Real Estimate. Get a free real estimate of your home's value today on the realestate.com.au app.
Welcome back. There are about 1,900 homes scheduled to be auctioned this week. That's down 30% when compared to the same week last year. Sydney will hold 560 auctions, Melbourne 722, Brisbane 104, Adelaide 103 and Canberra 54. Take a look at the most viewed properties going to auction this weekend. And in New South Wales, the top property is 27 Orange Grove Castle Hill. This four-bedder sits on 700 square metres. It has 2 bathrooms, 2 parking spots, plus a pool in the backyard. In Victoria, the top property is 4 Cumming Place, Sunbury. The ad says renovate or detonate. Price is $480,000 to $520,000. In Queensland, the top property is 9 Paluma Terrace, Butterham. This large four-bedder is surrounded by rainforest and feels like a tropical resort. The top property in South Australia is 1 Narooma Place, Westlake Shore. This 3-bedder has been recently renovated, has 2 bathrooms and lots of parking. The top property in Canberra is 71 Bugden Avenue, Gowrie. This 4-bedder has 2 bathrooms, 2 parking spots. It's in Canberra's southern suburbs. And the most viewed property on the REA Group website this week is a huge mansion in one of Australia's most expensive suburbs. The address is 12 St George's Road, Toorak. The home has 1,500 square metres of internal living space split over 4 massive levels. It features multiple living and entertaining areas, 6 beds, 6 baths and 5 powder rooms, all set on a corner block. There's a massive underground car park, wine cellar, games room, home theatre, gym, study and bar. Asking price is $36 to $39 million. Expressions of interest close on May the 26th. And for more on property, I caught up with Flaherty from REA Group.
We do have far fewer auctions this coming weekend compared to the same weekend last year. The timing of Easter could also be a part of this, but we know that a lot of people are not willing to sell their homes on a day when there's a federal election. However, the next 2 weekends are also going to be relatively quiet.
Yeah, well, I remember we were chatting a few weeks ago before the big public holidays and you sort of said the market does start to wind down a bit this time of year as we go into winter. So I guess we're just seeing that happen.
Yeah, it certainly is winding down, but it's still lower than the same time last year. And I think there's probably a lot of people out there who are waiting to see what happens with the election and also what happens with interest rates in May, because we know that if we look at February, when rates fell, we saw a big jump in home prices that month. So some potential sellers might be waiting to see if we see something similar in May.
Yeah, we could get a rate cut in a few weeks' time, but just generally, how have auction clearance rates been tracking recently?
Look, they've been holding relatively steady. However, they're not performing particularly strongly. If we look at Melbourne, we're sort of sitting around the 60% mark, which, while it's not bad, is below what we would normally see in Melbourne, which is usually in that 65 to 75% range. Nationally, though, we are tracking around that 60% level. So not too bad, but not as strong as it could be.
All right, Anne, this week the Home Value Index was released. Just talk us through the key details. How have property prices been tracking in the previous month?
Well, we actually saw home values increase in every capital city over April, and they're sitting at a new national record high. We had extremely strong growth, particularly in Adelaide and Melbourne. Adelaide has now surpassed Perth to become the best performing capital city over the past 12 months. And Melbourne actually appears to be finally making its comeback after massively underperforming the other capital cities over the past few years.
Yeah, I know. We've talked about Perth being one of the best performing cities in the nation for the past couple of years or so. But what do you think's helped Adelaide now take that crown?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because we have seen population growth rates slow a little in Adelaide and we are starting to see supply pick up. I think, though, that there's still, as a smaller market, any relative increase in demand can have a big impact. And we're still seeing pretty strong demand from all kinds of groups, including investors and also owner-occupiers in Adelaide.
And what about Melbourne? Is it Melbourne finally starting to make a bit of a property price comeback?
I think that there are a lot of people recognising that there's enormous value in Melbourne. The fact that the median price of a home in Melbourne is now sitting below Brisbane, below Adelaide, Perth is on track to overtake Melbourne soon. If you look at the fundamentals of Melbourne as Australia's predicted fastest growing capital city, the lower value of the homes, I think we're starting to see people recognise that, you know what, there's really most likely only one direction for home values in Melbourne. Now could be a great time. There's still a relatively high level of supply of homes for sale in Melbourne, so there's a lot of opportunity for buyers. But I think that we're also really starting to see signs of investors coming back to Melbourne, even investors from interstate who are looking at the comparable values of Melbourne compared to the rest of the country and really seeing it as an opportunity.
All right, so property prices back at record highs. What are you expecting for the rest of this year?
We do think home values have further to rise in 2025, and the main reason for that is that we are expecting that we'll see a couple more interest rate cuts. We know that if it becomes cheaper to borrow, that typically pushes home values up. So that's what we would expect to see. And I think on the other side of the election, we know that whichever side wins, there's going to be policies to support first home buyers, which again would increase demand, which is very likely to push upwards pressure on prices as well.
And Flaherty from REA Group, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.